The Nintendo Switch 2 releases in mere hours from when I'm recording this, and there's a rumored Nintendo Direct happening later in June as well. Because of that, I think there's no better time than now for me to get the rest of my predictions for Nintendo in 2025 off my chest. Yes, that's right, I've caught the prediction bug, and in this video, I'm going to be going over everything left for Nintendo in 2025. Not only are we going to be going over games and things we already know are releasing, giving everything else that comes out this year a concrete date, but I'm also going to go over how well I think the Switch 2 will sell throughout the rest of 2025, everything that I think will be shown off in the remaining presentations of this year, and that's right, the new games that they haven't even announced yet that I think are coming, because spoiler alert, I don't think we know everything that's dropping this year. In fact, there's one big game that I have releasing in the holiday that hasn't been announced yet, and even some more Nintendo Switch 2 editions. So in order to get through all that, we're going to be going month by month as I predict the rest of Nintendo's 2025. Alright, we gotta start things off with June, the month we're in right now, and the month of the Switch 2 and Mario Kart World. Not only am I super excited, but I'm pretty sure everyone is super excited as well, which is why I genuinely think the Switch 2 will go on to sell 4.5 million units in the month of June. Now, the Switch 1 was released in a similar situation, March 3rd of 2017, meaning it had pretty much its entire first launch month to sell units. It sold 2.74 million units within its first month, making it Nintendo's fastest selling home console ever. Yes, I'm predicting almost 2 million more units than the Switch 1 sold in its first month. It would be a lot of units to sell within a first month, but I definitely think it's possible. The Switch 1 did incredibly well, and now this is the Switch 2. Everyone's already seen the success of the Switch 1. In Mario Kart World, the Switch 2's launch title is exclusive, unlike Breath of the Wild, and also seems to be the biggest Switch 2 game we know of, at least for this first year. So yeah, I'm stamping it 4.5 million units. The Switch 2 gets off to a big start, and Mario Kart World goes crazy. Pretty much every single one of those 4.5 million units also either comes with, or they just end up buying separately Mario Kart World. I think that game will sell incredibly well. However, we already know that stuff's coming. What we don't know about, but what's been highly rumored, is a Nintendo Direct, also happening in June, and this makes sense. I mean, ever since Nintendo stopped going to E3, they just did their own Directs in June. It's kind of weird for them to do one in the same month that they launch a console, but hey, it's not impossible. To be clear, I think we'll get the Direct later on in June, and here's everything I think we'll see in it. I believe the Direct will start with either a brand new Splatoon or Animal Crossing game. I say that because those two series share a lot of similar developers, but in my opinion, it'll be Splatoon. I understand that Animal Crossing is technically next up for the console, but ever since the success of New Horizons in 2020, I think Nintendo's realized that Animal Crossing can be used to provide a console that big mid-generation boost like the Switch got, so I think they'll announce Splatoon for early 2026 rather than a new Animal Crossing game. This June Direct will also give us a lot of information on Donkey Kong Bananza. I believe this game is going to be massive. It's developed by the same team that made Super Mario Odyssey, and because of that, we will get no new 3D Mario game this year. Well, kind of. We'll get to that later. Again, I do think there's going to be a bunch of Mario stuff this year, but not a new 3D Mario game because Nintendo is going to be heavily focused on promoting Donkey Kong Bonanza with an awesome overview trailer that really lets us understand what this game actually is, because we've seen a decent amount about it, but we also really know nothing about it. We don't know much about the story at all. We really don't know many different levels or gimmicks, power-ups, so this June Direct will completely reveal everything there is to know about this game before it releases. I believe we'll also get information about Drag and Drive, that wheelchair mouse mode basketball game. I believe that'll be dropping in August. Kirby Air Riders will get another trailer. I'm super excited for this game. I love the original Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube. Anything Sakurai directs is going to be a banger in my opinion. And Kirby Air Riders will get a release date for September. We'll get another trailer about the new Hyrule Warriors that will release in December and be the big December game of this year, kind of like how Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was back in 2017 of the original Switch. While this isn't necessarily a Switch 2 game, we'll also get more information on Metroid Prime 4, which obviously does have a Switch 2 edition. That game will release in November. So if you're keeping track as of right now, that is one game for every month of the rest of the year. June has Mario Kart World, July has Donkey Kong Bonanza, August has Drag and Drive, Kirby Air Riders comes in at September, Pokemon, which is a game we already know about, comes in October, Prime 4 November, Hyrule Warriors December. However, this video is not done, and Nintendo isn't even done in this one June Direct, because this is where I think they lean more into the Mario side of things. things. First things first, Mario Kart World DLC. I genuinely do think this will happen. I don't know if it'll happen in the June Direct, but I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Would you want me to make a full video going over what Mario Kart World DLC could look like? Because in my opinion, there's two paths forward. They either do a paid expansion like Mario Kart 8 or the Booster Course Pass. If that's the case, I don't think it gets shown off here. But if they end up doing more of a live service thing where they just every once in a while add in new tracks as different islands or stuff to the world, then I do think we could get DLC information here. Let me know if you want to see a full video on that though, because there is a lot more to talk about when it comes to Mario Kart World's potential updates. The June Direct is still not finished though, because I do genuinely believe we will be getting Mario's 40th anniversary. Now, once again, I'm not entirely sure if this gets announced here. In fact, I think Mario's 40th anniversary might get its own dedicated Direct, which we'll get to later on, but I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it here, just because there will be a lot of eyes on this presentation as it's happening just a couple of weeks after the Switch 2 launches. The main thing that I think they have to announce as part of that presentation though is the big new game that I think will release on Switch 2 this winter, or at least this fall, and that is Mario Super Sluggers Grand Slam. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be called Grand Slam, I just think this box art we made is pretty dope, but a new Mario sports game, specifically a new Mario Sluggers game, is in my opinion the big Nintendo game that we just don't know about for 2025 yet. Why is that? Well, Mario Strikers Battle League was the last Mario sports game, and that came out in 2022, meaning it will have been over 3 years since that game released, and it does not take that long for them to make new Mario sports games. On top of that, by releasing Mario Kart World as a launch title and Donkey Kong Bonanza just 1 month after the console itself releases, Nintendo will definitely want some sort of Mario Universe title to be released for holiday sales, so everyone can get like a new Christmas game and it's a Mario game. A new Mario sports game is the perfect middle ground for that. It makes sense, we haven't had one in a while, and it still allows Nintendo to put a Mario game on store shelves for Christmas. I believe the Direct will end off with a Mario Sluggers getting a release date for early October. Moving on now to July, and the main thing we know about here is Donkey Kong Bananza. I'm incredibly excited for this game, but to be honest, I'm a little worried for it as well. Now, I've seen some people saying that like, oh, they don't necessarily like the gameplay from what they've played on the Switch hands-on previews. That is not what I'm concerned about. I haven't touched the game yet, but everything I've seen, it looks pretty fun. What I'm more so concerned about is just the fact that, okay, we're doing a full big 3D Donkey Kong game, and it looks like it's made by the 3D Mario team, so in my opinion, this game is gonna be gas. I mean, there's just no way it's bad, but it's not a 3D Mario game, it's a 3D Donkey Kong game, and I think that'll be reflected in the sales as well. I just don't think there's going to be that many people who are as excited for this game as they would be if you literally just swapped out Donkey Kong for Mario, and that's a shame because Donkey Kong games, in my opinion, are some of the best, most interesting and well-designed games ever released by not just Nintendo, any company ever. I still believe Tropical Freeze is probably the best 2D platformer ever made, and now that we're getting a new Donkey Kong game in 3D, I just really want everyone to be excited for this. I'm hoping Bonanza sells really well, and it definitely will sell quite well considering it is a brand new Switch 2 game and everyone will just be excited to have something new to play on their console. But what more so concerns me about Bonanza is whether or not it's able to sell like a year down the line. Once we inevitably do get that Switch 2 3D Mario, does Bonanza keep selling or does it drop off a cliff? Mario Odyssey sold well throughout the Switch's entire lifespan. I'm hoping Bonanza is able to do the same, but I don't think it will. However, in terms of predicting 2025, it'll sell just fine. Everyone will be excited to have a new Switch 2 game. I think it'll come out to pretty high critical acclaim and sell well as a result. Next, let's move on into August with Dragon Drive. This game I do not think will have nearly the same reception. Everything I have seen about this game leads me to believe it very well has to be a free-to-play title that's included with Nintendo Switch Online. I do not see a single reason for anyone to purchase this game. However, I could say the exact same thing about the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. That shouldn't even be with Switch Online. That should just be with the Switch 2 itself. Clearly, Nintendo does not want to just give stuff away for free. I mean, they're charging $10 for an interactive manual. Even though Dragon Drive would be a perfect thing to bundle in with Switch Online, I don't see it happening. As a result, even if it's cheaper and just like a small eShop game, I don't think Dragon Drive will sell that well or really do anything, because in order for a game like this to truly make an impact, it just has to be free to play. There doesn't seem to be enough meat on the bones for them to charge enough to really make a substantial profit from it. So in order for the game to be successful, they just need to get a bunch of people playing it. However, the game seems too weird and quirky for a lot of people to take a chance on what could be like a $30 downloadable eShop title. It really should be free to play. I don't see Nintendo doing that. Because of that, I think Dragon Drive will be a bit of a disappointment. However, I also think we'll get an Indie Direct this month. Whatever Nintendo's calling them nowadays, Indie World, Indie Direct, we'll get to see a bunch of cool indie games on the Switch too, and that'll be pretty awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if some more graphically intensive indie games made their way over as well, just because of the new hardware and performance boost that the Switch 2 gives developers. Okay, now let's get to September. This is a huge month for Nintendo, as normally they have another Direct this month. However, specifically now, I think this is going to be a Nintendo Direct, but with a heavy focus on Mario's 40th anniversary. First things first, Mario Sluggers. I think we'll get more looks at Sluggers, including more characters and all that, and maybe this is copium, but I think it'll look really good. I think just given all the extra time that Nintendo's had to work on the next entry to the Mario sports game, plus the underwhelming reception of Mario Strikers Battle League, I genuinely think Nintendo will at least put in the effort to make the game look like it's an absolute banger at launch. Who knows if it'll actually stand up to the Mario sports games of the past, but I don't think it'll be a Battle League situation where everyone kind of knows it's going to be a stinker on arrival. I think we'll also get Mario Kart World updates here, and maybe even an eShop or NSO thing like Super Mario 40, kind of like how we got with the 35th anniversary. However, the big thing about Mario's 40th anniversary that I personally believe hasn't been talked about at all will be the Switch 2 editions we receive. Once again, think about it. We are not getting a brand new 2D or 3D Mario this year. It's not happening. Donkey Kong Bananza is taking up that 3D platformer space, and we just got Super Mario Bros. Wonder a couple of years ago on the Switch 1. However, again, Nintendo is really going to want to have a bunch of Mario games on store shelves, especially for the holidays. Everyone with a Nintendo Switch 2 will already own Mario Kart World and likely Bonanza as well. So in order to have a successful Q4 and a successful holiday period for the Nintendo Switch 2, they're going to need to have a bunch of Mario games on store shelves for people to buy. The Switch 2 editions are the perfect way for Nintendo to do that. Sluggers will be great as its own game, but I genuinely believe we'll get a Switch 2 edition of maybe both Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Wonder this year. These $20 upgrades are great all around. They don't take a ton of time from Nintendo's perspective. They allow fans to revisit some of their favorite Switch 1 games, and they can still be placed as boxes on store shelves for parents walking into a GameStop or Target just looking for a new Mario game to get their kids. Both Mario Odyssey and Mario Wonder have so much potential for new content within a Switch 2 edition as well. We made a full video going over a bunch of Mario games that could get Switch 2 editions, but to sum it up here, I think Mario Odyssey would really benefit from the Delfino Detour. This additional campaign would include one kingdom, Isle Delfino, but within that one kingdom, we'd get a bunch of stuff, including remakes of not only Mario Sunshine's hub world, but a bunch of Mario Sunshine's levels as well, all within the Odyssey engine, looking incredibly good on Switch 2. I essentially think this would be a Sunshine-themed Bowser's Fury slapped onto Mario Odyssey, maybe give the base game some more costumes or hint art moons or whatever, and boom, you have a Mario Odyssey Switch 2 edition that would sell over 10 million units, guaranteed. Mario Wonder could get the Mushroom Mix-Up. That entire game takes place in the Flower Kingdom. Maybe we get sent back to the Mushroom Kingdom, but the Wonder Flower comes with us. So we get some neat references to 2D Mario's past, with a bunch of new Wonder effects and mechanics, shaking up the gameplay at every opportunity. Those two Switch 2 edition games, genuinely to me, seem like the smartest decision for Nintendo just from a pure sales perspective. They don't take a ton of time, they'll sell really well, you can even sell them as entirely new $80 games for anyone who somehow doesn't already have Mario Odyssey or Mario Bros. Wonder. They would help celebrate Mario's 40th anniversary, they just make sense. So because of that, I do genuinely see both of these games releasing in 2025. So that's everything I think the Mario's 40th anniversary Direct will have, but as for the rest of like the normal September Direct, I think we'll get some big third-party releases here. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm super excited to see it coming to Switch 2, but moving over to another critically acclaimed open world game, this time set in the Wild West, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 will also be a Switch 2 game, and it will likely get announced in a September Direct of this year. Nintendo will also show off footage for upcoming Switch 2 games like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and Metroid Prime 4 Switch 2 Edition. We'll get more info on Splatoon, which is coming out early 2026, and maybe some other smaller early 2026 games as well. I personally would not be surprised if that includes a quite early release date for Tomodachi Life. That seems like a March 2026 game. I don't know why, I just think that'll get announced. The last thing we gotta talk about in September is Kirby Air Riders. This game will release in September, and in my opinion, it's going to be a banger. Ironically, Kirby Air Riders has actually made me so much more excited for Mario Kart World, because while World looks to be an insane next step for the Mario Kart franchise, it seems to be shaking up a lot of things. I'm a little concerned specifically in 4-player local split screen how well World will play. Will there be too much downtime because of the intermissions or not? I don't know. What I know for a fact though is that Kirby Air Riders will not have that problem. That game will be developed from the ground up, not for some open world or whatever, but for multiplayer fun. That's how Sakurai operates with this sort of thing, and I'm just super excited for it. It's weird to have 2 Nintendo mascot racing games in 1 year, but when it looks to be the best Mario Kart game ever and then also a follow-up to one of my favorite GameCube games ever, I'm over the moon excited about this, man. Alright, now let's move on to October. October has two big releases, the first of which being Mario Sluggers. Now, I talked about Mario Sluggers before, obviously, but I want to say one thing here. While I do think this will be a Switch 2 game, I would not be super surprised if it ended up being a Switch 1 title. That would obviously mean you can still play it on Switch 2, and they'd likely show off some graphical improvements on Switch 2. I'm genuinely curious to see if this game does get announced, what console it would be for. Personally, I'm leaning towards Switch 2 just because they would want to have Switch 2 exclusive games, even though it doesn't need to be an exclusive. But if Nintendo does make this a Switch 1 title as well, that kind of lets us know that, like, hey, okay, they're gonna make the Switch 2 games that need to be Switch 2, but they're not gonna really force a Switch 1 game to be a Switch 2 game just so they can say, oh, the new console has more games. Later on that month, we also get Pokemon Legends ZA, which obviously, again, has a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, but is a Switch 1 game in its own right and will sell well because it's Pokemon. I'm not super excited for it, though, because it's Pokemon. No disrespect to Pokemon, I just have not cared about that franchise since Sword and Shield, really. They really did me dirty with those games. Moving on to November, we have Metroid Prime 4 finally releasing. I genuinely believe this will be a Game of the Year contender. Retro Studios does not miss. I understand this is like an entirely new development team from the Retro we're used to. After all, they have not released a game since 2014 with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, but also they have had so much time to cook with Metroid Prime 4 that I just feel like there's no universe this game comes out underbaked. I think it's going to be an absolute banger, an incredibly good campaign, and I'm still crossing my fingers for some sort of multiplayer mode. We haven't seen anything on it, but I'm really crossing my fingers for that. I also think November will be the release of the Switch 2 Edition games. I genuinely would not be that surprised if the new Mario Odyssey Switch 2 Edition and Mario Wonder Switch 2 Edition release on the exact same day in November. Yeah, it is kind of weird to have a new 2D Mario and 3D Mario experience releasing on the same day, but they're just updates to previous Switch games, and I do think Nintendo will want both of them out again for the holidays. If they don't want to do that though, then I think Mario Odyssey will be the big one for this holiday, and maybe Mario Wonder gets pushed back to like March of 2026 so it can release on Mario Day. Besides that, we move on to the last month of 2025, December. The Switch 2 will be selling incredibly well during the holidays. I think it genuinely will be pretty hard to get a new console during the holiday season. It will be the gift of the year this year, and I guess to capitalize on that, Nintendo will release Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment early in December, therefore wrapping up the Switch 2's first full calendar year, 2025. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this prediction video. I'm obviously pretty confident in it, but we'll have to see what ends up happening. Thank you guys for all the support during the Switch 1 era. We got so much more content coming for you with Switch 2, so stay tuned, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.